Welcome to this fourth edition of Fare Cinema. My name is Veronica Manson, and I'm the director of the Italian Cultural Institute here in Toronto. Now, Fare Cinema means literally manufacturing cinema, and it's an annual event organized by the Italian Ministry of Foreign Affairs in collaboration with Cinecittà, Istituto Luce, ANICA, the Italian Trade Commission, ICE, and Fondazione Cinema Roma. Now, Federico Fellini once said that Cinecittà was indeed la fabbrica dei sogni, literally the factory of dreams, the factory where you manufacture dreams. And Fare Cinema wants to be a celebration of this factory and the industry of cinema in general, promoting not only film directors and actors, but also the many essential people that work in this factory: the cinematographers, the screenwriters, the sound engineers, the producers, and so on. Today, for Toronto, we have the honor to host a conversation between two great film directors, one Canadian and one Italian. We have with us Saverio Costanzo, who is a distinguished film director and screenwriter, renowned for films like Hungry Hearts, Private, and La Solitudine dei numeri primi, as well as the award-winning TV series L'Amica Geniale, My Brilliant Friend, which is the adaptation of one of Elena Ferrante's internationally acclaimed book and trilogy. Saverio has directed more than 70 titles and won 18 awards, both in Italy and abroad. On the other side of our virtual table, we have Jerry Ciccoritti, one of Canada's most prolific film and TV series director, known for, among others, the series Schitt's Creek, Regenesis, and Due South, as well as a beautiful film like The Life of Saints, which in Italian was La Terra del Ritorno, that he shot in Italy with Sofia Loren and La Ferrigno. Jerry has more than 60 titles and has won 20 awards in his career so far. Now, the conversation will be moderated by Mario Sesti of Fondazione Cinema Roma. Mario is also a film critic, a director himself of several documentaries, and a programmer for TV networks. So, without further ado, I would like to pass my virtual microphone to Mario. And thank you all for being here today with us. Grazie.
Thank you.
Thank you, Veronica. Thanks to be here with us to share this virtual space together. And I'm going to start very directly with a question that is something that could be related to both of you and your work. In fact, both of you work directing films and TV series. Can I ask you what are the essential differences between them and how they affected and influenced your way and style of directing? What's the first?
Jerry.
Jerry.
Grazie. First of all, thank you for inviting me to participate in this wonderful event. The essential differences are this. I'm assuming that we're going to talk about directing for television, meaning typically a director in television is what we call a hired gun. He or she is hired by somebody else to do their show. It's different in a situation like, for example, with Saverio, who writes, produces, and directs feature films, and is also doing the same thing for My Brilliant Friend. In both cases, there is no difference. He's treating the television thing the same way he's treating the film thing. Putting that aside, essentially, the cliche, which is very true, is this. Cinema is a director's medium, and the director is in charge, more or less. And in television, the writer is in charge. The writer is given the position of producer and a creator of the show, and director in absentia. And the director is hired to fulfill his or her vision. So what the director does is interpret in an interesting way, I don't think many people talk about this. I have a big background in theater. Directing for television is actually a lot closer to theater than cinema, because when you're directing cinema, whether you're writing the script or not, you're still shaping the script, you're shaping the performances, you're shaping everything. It's all coming from you. When you're directing theater, you're interpreting it. You're not rewriting Shakespeare or Pirandello. You're bringing a very specific set of skills to interpreting someone else's vision. So when you're directing television, typically that's what the television director is doing, is putting all their skills and experience and art into bringing out someone else's vision onto the screen. That would be my short answer. Saverio.
Wow. No, I mean, I would have kept listening to Jerry for hours, actually. As Jerry said, I mean, my story is quite different because My Brilliant Friend is a series, is the TV show that I wrote and directed. So I approached that project like it was a kind of feature film of mine. I accepted to do it just because I was driving all the machine since from the script to the editing. Of course, we have like HBO and Rai to interact with, but I was quite confident about the thing that we were working for the same kind of scope, so there was not any impositive choice that I was. It was not like a studio, like Jerry said. It was not like a production that took me for just interpreted some episode of the series. But I had in my career back on 2012, 2011, the first TV show I directed was In Treatment, the Italian version of the HBO and the Israeli version, BT Pool. And that was the first time that I, interact with something that is not coming from me, even if I made many adaptation of books, but they were, like Jerry said, something I was shaping from the beginning to the end. In Treatment was a very different adventure because I found myself just like in a theater play somehow, like a director for theater. I was trying to give the best performances from actors possible, but in somehow the directing and my point of view was on the side. Was not the main point. Writing was the main point. And I learned a lot from that experience because I learned actually how to write a screenplay, a script. I learned how to hide myself inside other people's world, behind other people's word. So it was like My Brilliant Friend in somehow, because once you do television, of course, you have to think about a different kind of medium. It's not cinema. So you have to be aware of, on the writing side, about many things. You can just, be a little bit more sometimes experimental when you do cinema in terms of writing. So for me, there is not such a difference. I mean, okay, that's it.
Okay, I would like to take advantage from your answer for make other questions. Jerry, you say that being on stage means to interpreting, but if I'm not wrong, you wrote for the stage too, in terms of having original play, no?
Yes.
So the writing effort could be an instrument, a mean for to be author on the stage too.
Yes.
Evidently. So
that's okay. Yes. Well, years ago, I was the co-founder of a theater company here called Buddies in Bad Times, which continues to this day and is a very important and innovative theater company. So a lot of my background was in theater. The main reason I got involved with theater in the first place, when I was young, I always knew I wanted to be a film director. And I always had more or less a confidence in my ability to command visuals. Command is a very pretentious word. Let me take that back. Use visuals and sounds to tell a story. But part of me realized that the language of acting is going to be very important to understand. So I think I should understand that. And the best way to understand the language of acting is the world of the theater. So that's what drove me into that for several years, in order to learn how to work with a simple text, an actor, one spotlight, and nothing else. That goes beyond writing. That's just using the raw elements of a voice, a face, a light. Everything else is in the imagination of the audience. I hope I'm not falling into the trap that a lot of people falling into, which is denigrating the role of the theater director. You see, there's some great directors, aside from Saverio, Visconti, Zeffirelli, Ingmar Bergman, who spent a lot of time directing theater as well too, and they're interpreters. There was a great pleasure and satisfaction from the skill and the craft of interpreting somebody else, of staging a perfect text and mining its meaning and bringing it out through yourself. Because what you have to do, first of all, is put yourself in the body of the writer in order to find out what they mean. You know, in cinema, the easy way is, well, this scene doesn't work. I don't know what the scene means. You know something? Let's rewrite it as we go. You can't do that in the theater. You have to stick to what's written. So there's a great pleasure in serving a text and serving something else. Whereas in cinema, the satisfaction is coming from you being the author of everything completely. So that's the
difference.
That's the difference, and the two pleasures. I want to make sure that we understand there is a different but equal pleasure from serving.
So just exploring a little more about some nuances about the beginning of the career, Saverio. Your start was very different because you started as a documentary director, no? It's quite different, no? And after that, you have been so lucky to meet the storytelling, if
yes.
I may say.
Yes, yes. My start was I was studying sociology in Rome, and we were working a lot with the small cameras. They were just the beginning of the H8, the Sony H8, which is the first consumer kind of camera. So we were working in a laboratory in Rome at the university a lot with these small cameras, and I had the idea to shoot my university thesis in because I had to escape from the army because they called me to, you know, and so I had to go abroad for 3 years, and I went to New York where I had a friend of mine that was working on television, I mean, as a cameraman, camera department. And I went there and I shot an Italian-American bar called Caffè Mille Luci that was on the 18th Avenue in Bensonhurst, Brooklyn, which is far away from Mott Street and the Little Italy we all know. Mm-hmm. It's close to Coney Island, so it's the really end of New York. And I basically thinking about the Frederick Wiseman kind of documentary, which is one of my idol of cinema, even if he's a documentary filmmaker, it doesn't matter in somehow because he does cinema. I was just shooting the daily life of the bar with the same clients every day. There was the school bus driver, there was the lawyer, there was the guy that deal with music, Italian music. It was the barman. I mean, and there was the mobster, of course. There was Tony Genovese coming in the bar from time to time. I couldn't shoot him, of course. And then I just shot the life of the bar for 1.5 years. And then I took all the materials. It was my university thesis, but also a documentary that Rai brought I mean, just they made a kind of different episodes for Rai.at, which was the first internet website for Rai. So was not very, you know, common because the modem was 56K, so it was very old. There was no any ADSL, whatever. But it was my beginning. So I started just, you know, for me, recording with a camera was like for an ethnographer writing on a notebook. So it was the same kind of stuff. So for me, somehow I learned a lot how to direct without talking, because I couldn't really say, I mean, I couldn't ask them to say something. I was waiting for them to say, or to act like in a way that I was waiting for them to act for my narrative that I had in my mind, even if it was a documentary, of course. And in this way, I was just one-man band. I did the sound, I did the photography, I did everything. So every mistakes I made, I had to be at the bar for 2 months further, just to, you know, to replace that scene that I needed from them. So for me, approaching the reality with a camera, trying to get as with rigor, with very like, I was not free to do everything I want to, of course. I mean, I was just waiting for, like Fredrik Wiseman, they was just, you know, observing reality without trying to talk to the reality once you are shooting.
To
record the reality in the purest way you can. And that gave me a lot in terms of building something which is rigorous in terms of the approach you have to something that is real, that is alive in front of yourself, and your needs. You know, so there is a balance between what you see and what you need, and you have to find the right balance between these two elements on stage in this moment. And I learned how to direct actually with that approach, which is very documentary kind of approach.
Okay, coming back to the TV series issues, in order to end it, do you think that the unbelievable increasing in TV series production could change the nature of the audience? I mean, given that an episode on Netflix could be seen all over the world, almost simultaneously, maybe we have to start to imagine that those productions are giving shape to a sort of worldwide audience, more concentrated, with more similarities between different audiences in different countries, in your opinion?
In my opinion, I'm not a big fan of TV shows, I have to say, because they all look alike most of the time. And the fact that Netflix, for example, is producing in many countries stories in the language from the countries, I mean, Italian, French, whatever, my impression is that they all for sure, I mean, being on internet simultaneously, worldwide, which is a lot, of course, but if they all look alike, it's a kind of globalization. I really think it's not worth it. I mean, for audience to learn how to watch things. I mean, I learn a lot by watching films. And I really think that the new generation can learn by watching a Netflix TV show. Because once you have an algorithm that decide everything, And of course, the production has to, follow the dictatorship of an algorithm. I don't want to look old in the way I show this, but if you ask me if you have faith of that, I believe this is gonna kill the different tastes that everybody has to create from itself by watching a piece of art. And television actually starts in somehow like HBO. Think about HBO 20 years ago. Even, I mean, HBO, when I was in New York back in 1999, for example, HBO was not B, was HBO. I mean, it was something very, think about The Sopranos, think about Angels in America, think about all the stuff that even documentary-wise.
It got a strong cultural identity.
Very strong cultural identity, and working with them, with My Brilliant Friend, for me was very something. It's like, you know, driving a Ferrari, working with the guys that have a very artistic scope in their mind, and actually they are still like that. But once they have to, because they have been bought by, I don't know, Time Warner Cable, whatever it is, and they became very big. And from being a boutique with just 6 shows per year, and they can like shape and care and you know, and work a lot on that shows to make every of them unique. If you have to do it 50 shows per year, it's going to be very hard to make something that is that has a quality scope in it. And as a viewer, from what I see on Netflix, Prime, or whatever around Sky, whatever, I see that 95% of the thing they produce is not really, is nothing. I mean, I'm very pessimistic about that, because they all look alike. For sure, everybody's working now. Everybody, from the technical department to the actors. There is a new kind of, you know, very enthusiastic producing atmosphere everywhere in the world, because the streamers, but be careful, because this is not cinema. And cinema, in my opinion, is something serious. I mean, that has to be really independent. But even if it's coming from the studio, maybe there is coming a big masterpiece, you know. I'm not saying that Wolf of Wall Street, because it's coming from the studio and it cost $100 million, it's a bad film. It's enormous. It's a wonderful film. But you see that behind it, there is a point of view. There is someone who's looking at something with his own perception, you know? And so it's very personal. And that brings to the audience the witnessing of someone who's thinking about cinema. And this is, for me, the difference between cinema, most of the cinema that we have around, and the TV shows.
Jerry, what's your opinion? You made personal films and a lot of the TV series. Did you agree? Do you agree that the films are this opportunity to stress differences in culture, and TV series tends at the opposite, to pass all together, to make everything the same?
I agree with just about everything that Saverio said. However, I still take a more optimistic view to his pessimistic view, because knowing as much about the history of cinema as I do, you know, we talk about the same 10 great Italian directors from the classical period, or the same 5 or 6 French directors, or Japanese directors. But the fact is, while those 10 Italian directors were making their movies that were known all over the world, there were 40 Italian directors making garbage. And the same thing in France, and the same thing in Canada. And you have to be a real obscure Tarantino-esque, Ciccoritti, Saverio-esque student to go to that DVD shelf and find that, you know, La Professora di Nuda, whatever, you know, these titles that came out.
Oh, okay, this title, but they were more like erotic kind of films.
Well, you know,
this
70s. Kind of thing, you know, third level Toto films.
Yeah, no,
and this stuff, right? There's a lot of garbage. My wife is Mexican. She was growing up with, you know, great Mexican movies, but also a lot of garbage as well too. So we can't ignore that. We can't say that was the past and that's not happening now and blame HBO and Netflix for becoming corporate too big and putting out a lot of garbage. That's just the nature of the union between the marriage between capitalism and art. I think the onus is on us to weed through the garbage and to find the stuff that's out there. Because yes, when Netflix started a few years ago, everybody thought, well, just walk in with a piece of paper and they'll give you money to go up and do a series or a miniseries. And now that's changed very rapidly. And yes, the video is right. HBO has changed as well too, but because they're in competition from Netflix, it was either change and adapt or disappear. But they still do, you know, wonderful things and get behind wonderful artists. Yes, there's a lot of garbage out there. But I find that I'm discovering obscure television series and miniseries from Japan, from Taiwan, from African countries, from all kinds of countries all over the world that I would not have seen ever if I hadn't weeded through the rest. And yes, it's a search. Yes, my wife and I make a conscious effort, like, you know, let's find something from South Korea. And we kill an hour going 10 minutes of this Korean, that Korean, this kind. They're all terrible until, aha, we found something. And we find it, and it's great, and it's worth the search, you know?
Wow.
Not everything is going to be a masterpiece, but when we finish watching it, we found something wonderful. Speaking as somebody who knows the Canadian and the American audience, you know, we are spoiled. We're used to things being reflective of the American sensibility, the Hollywood sensibility. So when things come over from foreign countries, for the most part, they have to be dubbed or they don't come over at all. Very, very, very few people watch anything in the cinema that's subtitled. The subtitled foreign film world has been over for 30 years, if not longer. But on Netflix, people will watch foreign language movies that are subtitled. So in terms of the future, I think there is an audience, a young audience, being raised into this in this world where they're used to subtitles, they're used to seeing other languages, other cultures. So I'm hopeful about this. I'm hopeful that we are entering a period of big global sharing.
Okay. Getting more inside your job, both of you spoke about the effort to direct actors, which is a very special aptitude. It's not so immediately learning technique. Jerry, I heard in a conversation online that I heard you saying that to talk to the actors on the set was the most engaging effort in your work, and it was difficult to learn. And I had you suggesting to the actors that the best way to get inside in a character is to read a script, to read many times. I think it's interesting that you can explain more precisely this way of having a relation with the work on the actors.
Geez, well, I mean, working with an actor for me is one of the most pleasurable aspects of making a film. Mostly because I see every scene as a relationship between three actors. two human actors and a camera, which to me is not a recording device. The camera is the third actor in the scene, which participates in the same movement and the same language and the same conflict, but the camera has no voice. The director is the voice of that other actor, and all three of those voices have to talk to each other. And I find, for me, it's satisfying and more successful to speak in terms of an image when working with actors, but to speak in terms of actors' languages, right? Because actors are all different. Every actor has a different language. I've been on sets where the two leads are together, and this one actor is a very classically trained, text-oriented. They just want to discuss the lines, the dialogue, over and over and over again, run the lines over and over. And then this actor here doesn't want to do it. And in fact, they're incapable of doing it. They just need to know the lines once and to experiment and grow. And I can't bring one language and force both actors to follow that one language. What I have to do is somehow meld, understand their languages and let their languages communicate to each other. I'll give you a quick anecdote, forgive the name dropping, but when I was working with La Loren on Lives of the Saints, there was, we got along wonderful, wonderful. She was so wonderful to work with. But there was one day early on in our relationship where she asked me, well, what do I do? And I said, well, you come in the door, you sit down over there and you dial the phone. And she said, well, how many steps do I take? And I thought she was joking. So I laughed and I said, 9 steps. And I called action, and she took 9 steps and she sat down. And I thought maybe that was a coincidence. And we did 3 or 4 more takes, and every time she took exactly 9 steps. And we had a chat about this afterwards, and I found, and she said to me, I'm not an actor. I need to know exactly what you need. Turn my head to the left on this line. Turn my head to the right on this line. She needed everything precise, but it gave her a base from which she could make it natural. It never seemed rehearsed or staged or fake or artificial. Even if she wasn't really paying attention, she needed the precision of 9 steps on this line, sit down. It's almost like military safety net that she could then improvise on. So that's what one type of acting, one type of language that as a director, I had to learn very quickly, well, I need to understand this language. Now that I understand it, I can communicate with this person and help this person communicate with the other actors. So that's sort of my approach to working with actors, is learning their languages and being the interpreter for each other through the camera, which is the other actor in the scene.
But I can't avoid to ask you about the relationship with Sabrina Ferilli. She has the same need of this military orientation, like La Loren.
No, she's the opposite. She's much more a wildcat. You just open the cage and you let her go, and what she wants to hear in return is direction that's just as wild. Whereas Sophia, after every take, would want to hear very small, delicate little adjustments, and La Ferilli wanted to hear, "What are you, crazy? That was terrible. Go back and do it again, like you know what you're doing, like a professional." And she would love that. She needed to be heard that way. And so these are 2 radically different voices coming from the same director on the set, going in 2 different directions.
Very different.
Yeah.
Saverio, you told me about your experience with Adam Driver. No? You too had this very special experience to direct a foreign star, no? And I think it's meaningful that you can share with us the way you approach Adam Driver, who is maybe one of the most important actors now in cinema.
But I approach him the way I approach even a non-professional actor. I mean, also because at that time, Adam wasn't as big as now. Hungry Hearts is his first leading role in his career. So it was coming from Girls, which is a TV show. but he was one of the characters. And then I saw him on a wonderful film called Francis Ha from Noah Baumbach, and he was still just, a character on the side. And then I met through Doug Gable, which was the casting director I work with on Hungry Hearts. But he wasn't big. I mean, nobody knew Adam Driver in Europe at that time, actually. So maybe that's the reason why I did the film. Otherwise, because it was a very, very, very small and independent film. So he found himself, with a very small crew. Everything was just becoming something during the shooting time. So was a film made like that, with the same kind of, with trying to, he's in love with Cassavetes the same way I'm in love with Cassavetes. So we really had an understanding with Alba Rohrwacher, which is the other co-lead in Hungry Hearts. We had the same kind of goal, which was to trying to put on scene the same kind of energy that Cassavetes asked his actors. And in this film in particular, I have to say that what Jerry says about the camera was fit quite well, because I was also the camera operator in this film. So for the first time, I somehow experienced the same way I did with documentary at the beginning of my career, a kind of dance between these two actors. They were on scene from the beginning to the end. They're just three actors in this film, and me as a cameraman and as a camera operator. And like Cassavetes, again, I mean, he was doing that to be closer to the actors, maybe for production reason, because there was no enough money to make the film with a camera operator, whatever. But I found myself like dancing with Alba and Adam in this film. And it was very challenging. I mean, every film, in my opinion, every film has its own story. If you do, for example, My Brilliant Friend, which is a huge production with a lot of actors, and you can be the camera operator because you have to deal with so many things around. So everything becomes a little bit more professional. But I like to do both. I like to do big thing with the machine of cinema behind you that put a distance between you and somehow and also between the camera and the actors. And other projects like, for example, Private, which was my first film, or Hungry Hours. There are films that I like to say that the coming from the need of a different kind of adventure of myself. So I need to do something where I'm in physically, and also the way of directing actors is different from the two different sides. I mean, every film, in my opinion, has its own way and his own method and his own approach to. But of course, from actors, we need to take from them truth, and I go for that. I mean, I never studied acting. I have no any method. I'm very ignorant about it. I just follow my feeling and sensation, going for something authentic. This is my only thing. I mean, how to reach to that point, to the authenticity, is always different. I mean, I cannot say is always different.
Okay, speaking about the role and the work of the director, because as you know, this meeting is within this event of Fare Cinema, whose goal is even to explain the job of cinema, the very different jobs in making cinema. And speaking about what you were speaking before about the need, the joy, the strength. To be director means to be to approach, to afford very different task, to write, to direct, to have visual skill, to edit, to add sounds at the end. May I ask you, which is your favorite moment, your favorite task in being director? What's the moment in which you are more happy? You are happier making those different work being director.
But I can say, Jerry, you want to go first?
Please.
But in my opinion, every moment has its own thing. I mean, writing or thinking about what to write is like to be in the ocean without a boat, and it can be very scary. And it is actually very scary because you feel alone. Once you find something to work on, it's like to find the boat finally, and you are by yourself in the boat. And I like that. I like to be by myself writing. I don't like to write with others. I prefer to write with myself, by myself. And once you finish writing, the boat can finally touch the land, and you meet other people again. But you have a knowledge. You know very well what to do because you were in the middle of the ocean, okay, by a boat, by yourself. So you had, in this moment, writing, you built every answers they're gonna ask you, because they're gonna just ask you questions, and you have all the answers in that moment. And once you go to the land and you jump out of the boat, you meet people. So you meet actors, you share your knowledge of the story you just wrote or the book you just adapt to a film. And you go with them in a like a roller coaster. So whatever is coming, more is solid the moment you were by yourself, and more the confusion, like in a roller coaster, the share with all the others becomes clear. I mean, it's gonna become something you could never expect, of course, because there is the work of all the other people with you, and that makes the big difference between something that is dead and something that is alive, because you have to be open to every possibilities, and also to every suggestions. You know, collaborating cinema is made by collaborators, and then you go back to a kind of loneliness in the editing room, which is with the editor, which is a kind of psychologist that you just tells all the limit you have and all the good things you did, but also the bad
therapy
things.
moment.
It's a therapy kind of moment, and I like to say that it's very secret what happened in the editing room, because you really face your mediocrity, and after that, finally, the film belongs to itself, and not anymore to you, with all its good and its bad. And that's it. So I like every moment, because it's very the thing about cinema. The good thing about cinema is that it's very different. Every aspect of the production is very different, and I have to say all of them.
So Jerry, so different moments, so different skills. Yeah. So moving roller coaster.
Well, there's also the wonderful little monologue that Francois Truffaut's director character, La Nuit Américaine, describes the making of a film to an American stagecoach ride. That when it starts, everyone gets on this very comfortable, clean stagecoach, happy to spend some time with a bunch of people looking forward to a great journey. And by the end, you're just covered with dust and grime and sweat, and you hate each other's guts, and you're just praying that you can make it to the end. So, you know, there's that, which is, you know, if a guy like Truffaut can have that vision. And Saverio's totally right. There are different stages and different pleasures. And I've been asked this question before and heard other directors ask this question in interview situations. And I often wonder, what's the secret goal behind that question? Are we trying to convince people out there that, no, please be a director because there is something good that you'll get out of it? I'm not sure. I mean, for me, the stages are the great pleasure of writing is creating a fairy tale for the child in you, inventing something which has never existed before. So no matter whatever the hardships are of coming up with a story and the character and the value and the writing of it, at the end of the day, you're creating something pure and untouched, and it's its own story. The next stage is the worst stage of all. It's the stage that I hate. That's when you spend 2 years with 120 pages telling everybody, this is good, give me money. This is good, give me money, it's worth something. That's a horrible stage, which is essentially what happens for 2 years until finally you get money and you enter the production of the movie. And then it's a joyous period where you look at all the people around you, you know, the 50 people around you during prep, the 100 people around you during shooting. And all you do every day is you think, I can't believe all these people are here helping me put together something crazy I came up with 2 years ago. This is fantastic. And you cry at the end of every take saying, like, look what they did for me. Look what they did with the actors and this cameraman. Look what this is wonderful. And then the editing stage is post-production. The joy is of discovery. And every day I go into the editing room, I feel like, oh my God, look at this pile of film. What can I do with this? This is wonderful. I'm just going to snip this stuff together and see what I can come up with. So every single stage, that's what the 4 stages are to me.
Okay. And speaking about difficult adventure, Saverio, I can't avoid to ask you, how do you face the very difficult or unusual work to write a film with a writer whose face no one knows? Because this is a story. This is a story of a film too.
This is a kind of story of a film too. Yeah. But working with Elena Ferrante, it's been, you know, it's like working with Flaubert in the 19th century. So the only way you can talk to her is by writing email. And at the beginning, the first season, we have been writing with a formal person. So it looked like really a conversation between Tolstoy and his servant, in somehow, you know, because we were just everything was very, you know, cold and formal. But I learned a lot from that. First of all, writing to Elena Ferrante is not easy because I'm not a professional writer. I don't write books. Writing for cinema is totally different from writing a book. So I had to, you know, getting back the grammar book to make a sentence that makes sense. No, I'm kidding. It was a very challenging thing because I feel myself very close to her point of view on life, her dramaturgy, her way to build characters. So whatever I propose her to do, because the book, it seems very close, the series, to the book, but in fact, we did many different things. And because we're changing the medium, so of course the grammar is totally different. So, but she was open to everything. I mean, she was not the kind of writer that is trying to just preserve and defend her work from a metamorphosis that the work has to be made for sure to become something else. And but I believe this is happening just because I just share with her the same point of view. So we find ourselves, this is what I think, maybe she will think differently, but I feel that we have something in common. This is the reason why I accept her offer to be the director and the writer of My Brilliant Friend, because I was not looking for that project. She looked for me. And I was a big fan of her as a writer, but once she became very huge, for me it was very hard to approach the book like My Brilliant Friend. I wasn't really feel myself able to do something that big. But she gave me the chance, she gave me a lot of courage. And this is, you can work with somebody else on the writing side just if you really like him, you know, if you really share with them a point of view. And I believe we did, so everything become a kind of easy, I have to say. She's very strong, she's very tough, but I'm trying to defend my point. I'm opinionated as well, so I'm trying to defend my point of view. But we never had a very, you know, an argument. We had a very easy working together. I mean, I learned a lot from her, of course, more than she learned from me, of course, much more.
You doesn't know. Speaking about different tasks, last question for Jerry. You made Paris, France, a very erotic film. The New York Times wrote about the film like one of the most erotic films in history. What did you learn about filming sex when you made the film?
We have to have a whole separate hour session to answer that. Okay, well, I mean, the first thing is, why are you filming sex? And a lot of thought went into that because the nature of that movie, where the nature was following 4 characters through a carnal adventure over 3 days, in which all their lives were changed. The main metaphor for the film was the body, was flesh. The goal was, how can I express character development not through the action of a plot? Someone's in love with somebody else, somebody's jealous, somebody's going to murder you, whatever. But someone's going to have sex. And over the course of who they have sex with, how they have sex, what are the repercussions of that sex, that is what defines the characters and the story. So that's where it all begins. And what that does is it protects you in the idea from just being exploitative. Sex is no longer simply, oh, it's the sex scene. The sex is reduced to, well, okay, here they are in love, they've met, they got on a date, now they have sex, everything is great, we can move on. It's now in the DNA. It's coded in the DNA of the movie. Without the sex, there is no movie there. So you have to you start with that. Once you've done that, then you have to find actors who understand that point of view and are obviously brave enough to commit their actions to a level of exposure that they're not used to, at least here in Canada and south of us in the United States. We're very much more prudish when it comes to sex on film. In terms of the practicalities of it, I realized I needed to engage the trust of the actors. So the trust tests started in the auditions. I thought, I'm not going to audition the actors. I'm going to let them audition me. So the actors, the men and women who came in, I let them question me. I asked them nothing. I said, you have to ask me why I'm doing this, what my intentions are, how I'm going to shoot it. Ask me anything you want. And that gave them a lot of comfort in the sense that I wasn't coming in with some like crazy, wacky vision and I was going to seduce them with my honey director's words into taking off their clothes and getting naked and doing sex. It's like, no, I said, look, if I was in your place, I'd want to know who the hell are you and why are you doing this and why should I do this for you? So there's that. And then the next stage was we set up 3 weeks of rehearsals where we only did the sex scenes. We only rehearsed those. We choreographed them like a combination theater piece and ballet. Because one thing I wanted to do was as little cutting as possible. Because cutting tends to chop things up and tends to let things fall into the world of pornography. It becomes a close-up of a breast, of a penis, of an ass, of a hand on a piece of flesh. And that dehumanizes the person. But when the camera is constantly choreographed so that it's moving around the actors and there's no cut, then of course the actor stays alive as the character, and the character has a meaning and a value. And because I wanted like dolly and crane shots moving around actors as they rolled around on the bed, we needed to rehearse all that stuff. That gave the actors a great deal of confidence. And what it also did was it relaxed everybody. That at a certain point, after 5 days of rehearsing the same dolly crane moving, well, you got to roll over the bed. And on this line, when she grabs you and you go up, your head has to be here because the camera's on a crane. It's going to come down and going to meet your head. And it becomes so mechanical at a certain point that all embarrassment and humiliation goes out
so
the window.
If I understand well, you make the camera having sex with them.
Exactly. And it got to the point where when we were actually shooting, when we broke for lunch, I would actually have to tell the actors, no, seriously, it's lunchtime. You do have to put a robe on, just because they were so relaxed. So yeah, so starting with the morality and the ethics of it, into the hardcore technicality of how you shoot it. That's what I gained a lot of experience from.
Okay, I think it's been really interesting, and I would like that Veronica could put the end to this very interesting conversation that unfortunately has to last just 50 and almost an hour, right?
Wow. Thank you very much. That was really a meeting of minds, two different directors, two different approaches really, but yet so many points in common. That was delightful. And I really, really thank Mario Sesti for moderating. And of course, Saverio Costanzo for his insight. And Jerry Ciccoritti for all your experience and what you brought. I loved your optimistic vision of, TV series that can actually broaden our vision of, especially from a Western point of view, to discover also a new point of view coming from different part of the world. And this is all part, you guys are two masters of fare cinema. So to keep the Fabbrica dei Sogni alive, to bring us more and more, manufacture more and more dreams to present in TV on the big screen. So thank you very much on behalf of the Istituto Italiano di Cultura, Ministero degli Esteri, and see you at the movies.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye-bye, Jerry.
Bye-bye.
Nice to meet you. Ciao, Saverio.
Bye-bye, Jerry. Ciao, Mario. Ciao, Veronica.
Ciao. Ciao.
Ci vediamo.
Ciao.